All right, welcome back, everybody. Culture Punch Podcast. Let's start with the facts. Chris D'Elia was accused of soliciting private photos from underage women. Starting around 2012 or 2014. I'm not quite sure. I've heard both dates as allegations, so there's a lot of stuff still coming out. So as things progress and we talk about it, maybe there'll be some corrections. But the point is, one of the victims accused him of grooming her while she was 16. And I guess he was asking to make out or hang out or after a show or something like that. She also goes on to say that he used the power imbalance between us, which would be her and him, to his advantage. Fuck Chris D'Elia. Now, those are her words. At this time, or I should say, as time has gone on, more victims have come out on social media with claims. One stated that he exposed himself to her while she was at a Cleveland hotel fixing an AC unit. Another one claimed that he flew her out to LA from Canada to stay with him. And when she said, nah, it's not happening, he proceeded to threaten her with exposing her nude pics, I guess, if she didn't come. I must mention that the last one was at least 18 years old, because I'm sure you guys have heard that the accusers were underage at this time. But after all this came out, Chris released a statement where he said he had, quote, never knowingly pursued any underage woman, and that all of his relationships had either been both legal or consensual. I really am truly sorry, the 40-year-old continued. I was a dumb guy who absolutely let myself get caught up in my lifestyle. So Chris's legal team has since released emails of their own. Now, these emails don't completely paint Chris in a better light or a great light. I shouldn't say better. They don't paint Chris in a great light, but they definitely paint him in a better one than the victims originally, painted in prior. But in 2012, I believe, again, 2012 or 2014, an exchange with one accuser saw D'Elia asking her age midway through the conversation. So I know the names are released. If you guys want to hear the names, you guys go ahead and go check those out. I didn't really necessarily want to get into the names and things like that. So the podcast might get a little confusing when I'm going back and forth with victim and woman, but if you guys want to get the names of the victims, you guys can go research that. I just didn't want to release that on this podcast. Privacy, I don't know. I just decided not to. But anyway, I'll continue. Going back to what I said, one of the exchanges with the accuser with D'Elia midway through is when he asked her age. So she replies she was 12. Chris then replies in his fashion, answer. And she says 24. The bad part is by 24 question mark, I should say. The bad part is by this point, before knowing her age, he had already requested pictures from this victim. Now, his legal team confirmed in the statement that they dropped. They said he had requested pictures before knowing her age. But there has to be something said about asking her age and then being lied to, right? Which leads me to the next conversation. In another conversation, this said accuser reveals that she is indeed only 16 years old, maybe 17 years old, to which D'Elia replies, oh shit, I thought you were at my show. Gotta be 18 at least to get in there. My bad, bye. The legal team also released a conversation from that one accuser that claimed she was being groomed by a man twice her age. The same one that claimed Chris used the power imbalance to his advantage, by asking her to make out. And the release statement of D'Elia's team, this conversation exchange happened in October of 2019. This one victim who said that she was groomed or being groomed by D'Elia and that he would use the power imbalance between them to groom her and to get what he wanted, even though they never met up physically, never made out like he requested. The legal team released some, I don't know if they're email exchanges, but they're definitely a conversation in which this same accuser in October of 2019, where she reached out to Chris and said, I'm 21 now, and DTF. So for those of you guys that don't know what DTF means, it means down to fuck. So those are the facts. And before I begin dissecting and jumping into my thoughts on this, I just wanted to remind you guys to go check us out on Facebook and Instagram at Culture Punch Podcast, Twitter at Culture_Punch. And if you can, give us a rating on whatever platform you listen to. I don't really have too many ratings on Apple Podcasts. So if you listen there, please go give us a rating. It really helps to see if you guys are enjoying the content that I'm creating. Now, with that being said, welcome to the Culture Punch Podcast, where we aim to give you your dose of culture. Now, as you heard from my intro, we got another serious matter to discuss. Now, this, I believe, is categorized under the hashtag Speak Out movement. We've seen more than a few wrestlers fall victim to that, if that's appropriate to say. I don't know. I don't want to say they fell victim to it because they're not the victims, but for lack of a better word, which actually surprised me because if we're just hearing this now, but if you follow wrestling, you hear a bunch of old school wrestlers talk about stories from the 90s and even 80s where some of the crazy things that they did on the road. A lot of those involve drugs, but you have to assume that if drugs were involved, there was probably some kind of lewd behavior, especially because you have people like Sunny and people who were in the industry of wrestling that claimed, she was a hoe according to all the wrestlers, but they all slept with her. So there has to be something said about the wrestlers as well. But enough about wrestling, as I'll probably get into that on another episode. We're here to talk about this one big name, Chris D'Elia. That poor bastard. I've given you guys the facts, and I want to dissect the things that have come out from the original claims, which were on June 16th, to the response that was released about 5 days ago. So what do we know? We know that at one point, this country lived by the rule of innocent until proven guilty. We know that social media era is the complete opposite, and in reality, guilty until found innocent. Now, I know there is a lot of evidence supporting the claims of the victims, which I haven't heard him deny necessarily. And as of right now, I haven't heard anything concrete as far as things he did that were illegal. As it stands, what he did wasn't morally right, but it's not illegal. He asked for pictures from these women, or at least certain women, and I haven't heard of any evidence showing that he actually received those pictures. If he did, then my argument is not valid, therefore should be void and ignored. But the recent emails or conversations released by D'Elia's legal team shows that once he found out the age of the first girl, at least he told her, sorry, must be 18, at least, bye. The fact that he portrayed a pedophile on Netflix's show You, has the people's eyes wide open and Twitter fingers drooling at the mouth. But the fact is that nothing illegal has been proven yet. You can argue that soliciting to underage females is illegal, and you're 100% correct, 100%. But the problem is that right now it seems as though the legal team is going to argue that he had no idea they were underage, and once he did, he ended all conversations with that individual. Now, I don't study law, and I don't know what it says about that, or if there's a loophole about not having knowledge, but I do know it was morally wrong. And I think that's what we're all speaking on, because that could be our daughter or daughters, right? There should also be something to be said about the fact that the first victim or first female to come out, she reached out to him years later, which today is not that long ago. Like I said, less than a year ago. Could the fact that he cut off communications with her so rapidly the first time have anything to do with her coming out? Or how about the fact that she reached out to him again to, bump uglies, and he ignored her? Now, it seems a little suspicious to me, the timing of it, that is. Because we're living in a time where we embrace women. And I believe we have more respect for women now than we have in a very long time. We encourage victims to come forward, but at the same time, if you were DTF a few months ago, get ignored, then all of a sudden feel like a victim, to me, that just doesn't add up. If you felt like a victim the whole time, I don't believe you would have reached out to him. I think those are just patterns that people who feel victimized follow. I'm not a psychologist or therapist or psychiatrist or whatever. I'm not none of that. I could be wrong. And again, if I'm wrong, I apologize. But to me, it's hard for me to understand that. And maybe that's what it is. Maybe I just don't understand it. Maybe that's what it is. But I'm so critical of females who do this because there are a lot of real victims out there right now. A lot. And just like it only takes one law enforcement officer to change the views for all, I believe it's the same with victims. So I know I'm not a woman, but I take offense to females who try to jump on a Me Too or a Speak Out movement that aren't real victims, but instead play the victim. Because there's a difference. There are far too many real victims, like I've said, out there to be shitting on that, doing something out of spite or selfish reasons. And again, if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong, and I apologize if I come off as dismissive of these claims, because I'm not trying to do that. But right now, I don't know enough to know who was victimized and who truly wasn't. What I do know for sure is that people who truly feel victimized are victims by every sense of the word. And we should really listen to those stories and do our part as a society to be better and do better. But not after something has already happened, but be better now to stop things from happening. Feel me? There's an old saying that says, don't put yourself in a position to do something stupid and you won't. That might have been true before, but now if you're educated and understand how certain things or acts may make people or certain people feel, we live less in that nature and know what to do or how to act if and when we put ourselves in that situation or find ourselves in those stupid positions. So my point is that saying that says don't, and you hear it a lot with like relationships, don't put yourself in a position to cheat and you won't cheat. But if you are in love and you know what I'm saying, like you're not going to do that. You're not going to cheat. It almost applies the same thing for men. If we're educated and understand how women are feeling to our actions, that'll just make us better in the future. So if we ever put ourselves in dumb positions where maybe we think a girl likes us and we're flirting with them, we don't cross that line. Because I feel like that's where it happens, is when you feel it's reciprocated. And then when it's not, it becomes obviously extremely awkward. What he did morally was not right. And if he truly did not know the ages of any of the victims, does that change anything? Should we feel anything for Chris as the accused? Or are we just painting him as guilty until shown otherwise and siding fully with the women? It's a fine line and really complex stuff. Do we go against the grain and defend Chris? Not his acts, because we know the conversations with them, or he conversated with them, but the fact that he may have just been that stupid or naive to not pay enough attention when maybe there was signs right in front of him of their age. Or do we follow popular demand and do what Whitney Cummings did and just cancel Chris D'Elia with a closed mind? So no matter what comes out or what changes, he is guilty no matter what. Or in Whitney Cummings' case, cancel him until popular demand allows him back in, and then act like we didn't just ruin his life and career for the last X amount of years. And right now that seems like a big if they let him back in. These are hard questions because it is easy to paint him guilty off the bat. That's easy. We saw the messages and we've now put a face and the names to the victims, right? Or do we judge him based on what this country was founded on? Now, I mentioned he didn't do anything illegal. If he's soliciting to young women, that's illegal. If he's exchanging pictures, that's illegal. We know that. But as of right now, the story hasn't been cleared or clarified fully to know if pictures were exchanged, if he knowingly did it. You know what I'm saying? So I'm speaking on that. So before you bombard this podcast and myself with your hate, just listen to what I just said. I don't condone what he did. I don't approve of what he did because morally it was wrong. They're children. But there are predators out there. And Chappelle makes a joke on one of his stand-ups where he says, how old is 16? And he laughs about it, but he makes a really good point that there could be a 16-year-old, we'll say female, a 16-year-old girl who doesn't know if she's losing her virginity consensually. Especially in today's day and age, that just sounds crazy to me because I feel like women are more in tune with that kind of thing. But, you paint them as a victim. This isn't Dave Chappelle's stand-up. Yet you have a 16-year-old, I think it was a black teenager that did murder or something like that, and they tried him as an adult and gave him life. And he asked the question, how old is really 16? We need to make up our minds, which I can see that. We need to figure out what we need to base. I know we take things case by case, but those are good questions. I don't know exactly how to word it or how it would work, but that's a good question. But I mentioned that I feel like females are more in tune with that kind of stuff in today's day and age, which is the social media era. And I want to talk about a video that I had seen from a lady. Her name is Maggie Sargent, and she's a former comedy club employee. And in her, and this is what she said. She said, because she's talking about Chris, she says, he doesn't drink. She never saw him hitting on women or sleeping with them like the other comics did, because according to her, all the other comics were perverts and they were all flirtatious and they were all trying to get some nookie. But he worked and he left, is what she said. Kept his head down and wasn't flirty with anyone there. Her guess was he's alone on the road, sees pictures of these girls with asymmetrical figures and faces, and wants to chat them up a little bit. And he probably doesn't know how old they are. That's what she said. But then she also goes on to say that she feels that the victims need to take some kind of blame, because a lot of girls now know what she said. Like this: if you're taking these sexy pictures for Instagram, it's because you're doing it for attention and because you enjoy the power and this and that, right? Now, I don't agree with that fully, because I feel like there are women out there that just, do things like that for empowerment. You shouldn't be ashamed of your body, kind of thing. But there are some, I think, that obviously do it for attention. Now, they're obviously doing it for the attention of boys or people around them in their age. But it just goes to show you the internet's a scary place. Anyone, once you put it out, can get their hands on that and can prey on things like that. It's not right, but it happens. So your intentions could have been to post for your crush, and you have someone like, I don't even want to say Chris D'Elia, because again, we don't know how guilty, if guilty, I'm saying it's hard. But another thing that she mentioned is she calls out the comedians and calls them hypocrites. And I loved that, because I'm sitting back watching these podcasts and watching these videos, and I'm like, man, did this guy even have friends? Okay, you did something wrong. You solicited to young women, and you just completely cut him off on Instagram, social medias. You just erased him. You canceled him. And again, D'Elia didn't deny anything as far as he took responsibility for what he had done, but then he also had his team release those messages to show that they're painting him in a different light than it actually is. So again, what are we going to cancel him before knowing the full story? Is he guilty, needing to prove innocence, or is it the other way around? And I get so mad, and I know I'll catch backlash for saying that, but like that one girl who was like, one thing I didn't mention was she said that he asked for pics and then said, let's make out. And she said that if it wasn't for her getting a boyfriend her own age at that time, that she probably would have had sex with him. But it wasn't said like that. It was like, he would have preyed on me. Like, I can understand if you know someone, right? And they prey on you. I can see that. It's not right, but they're close to you, so they manipulate and maneuver or whatever. But if you've never met someone and they reach out to you via conversation, a DM, you have all the power in the world not to respond. That's your choice. You're telling me a 16-year-old can't or doesn't know how to make the decision to respond to someone hitting on him that's way older? I don't, I bring that up because she reaches out to him when she turns 21 and wants to fuck. And he ignores her because he found out her age, her real age. Another one manipulated her age, and when he found out how old she was, he said, nope, got to be at least 18. So if he unknowingly did these things, is he still guilty in your eyes? And again, I bring it up, it's sad because she talks about them being hypocrites, the other comedians. All they want is blowjobs. They want no girlfriend. They want just side pieces. And they're just as bad in sense of they're out there trying to fuck everything that walks, and they prey on every woman. So they're just as bad. Now, she was in a sense defending Chris, which I feel that he needs. I mean, he doesn't need me defending him or her defending. But at some point, someone's got to speak up and say, yo, look, there's real victims out there that have lived with things for years and have gone through things. Now, this first one initially, the one I'm talking about, I don't see her as a true victim, because why would she reach out to him and want to fuck? Now, some of the other girls, they had that interaction, they were uncomfortable, and that was that. They haven't reached out to him. That's a victim. A victim wants to get away from the person who's victimizing them, from the person who's abusing them, not the opposite. And it's not you can't sit there and say, oh, well, victims have crazy like manipulation and mind control and this. You can't say that because they never met up. It was all done via DM. Never met up. As of right now, never exchanged photos. So you can't, you got to rule that excuse out. And I want to talk about some of those comedians that have actually brought up the accusations on their podcasts. The one that stood out to me was Brian Callen. Obviously, they're good friends. But him and Brandon Schaub were just crushed. Because Brian Callen said he hadn't toured with him since maybe 2000. I don't even remember when it was 2004 or so, when he was first starting out. So he's like, I don't know what he's like on the road. Which that kind of upset me too, because all of a sudden everyone just gets in a panic mode and tries to denounce their relationship with him. And it's like, again, does this guy even have any friends? Like, does ride or die mean anything? Now, if you're fucking with little boys and girls, and I'm talking about like children who have no idea, and you're manipulating, that's a whole different level. Yeah, canceled. But a 16-year-old who later reaches out to you, just that doesn't add up to me. Now, the one 16-year-old that he was like, I'm in New York, and I guess she was not far, and he said, come see me. She did not. She is a victim. Yes, she responded, but she said she was pressured by the people her age because they said he's famous, respond. But once things got creepy, she stopped. That's a victim. She felt uncomfortable and she stopped. But not this first girl, not the girl who responded years later, less than a year ago. That just seems spiteful. The man's career is going to be ruined. And, and it's hard to talk bad about that because it kicked off this whole thing. Without her speaking up, then the other women wouldn't have came out. But they're victims. I don't know if you are. I have to wait to see more facts. But Brian Callen, it was sad. Brendan Schaub had no words and he was crying. And Theo Vaughn, same thing. He was in shock. He was defending the victims. I understand. But I believe that people are too afraid to speak what's really on their mind and automatically side with the victims instead of talking it out like I'm doing now. I'm talking it up. We're open. We're not having an open discussion or conversation. It would be nice to have someone in here to have this discussion with, but we don't. But like to talk these things out, get them out of my head and just, talk it out. Talking out loud. It's just, man, it's so frustrating. There's real victims out there. And if you're not, that's not cool. And then there was Eric Griffin. If you guys don't know who Eric Griffin was or is, he was on Workaholics, and he was Montez. You could tell he was crushed because he was, and you know what? He's the one that actually laid it out for me in perspective when he said he used to text girls, I can't, when he was on tour, I can't leave this city until I eat that pussy. And he said, if they didn't go for it, man, it made him uncomfortable. They're victims, and he's in the wrong. And he said that was his go-to and 30% of the time it worked. He said 3 out of 10 times. He said, but that's not the number that, to men, that's the number that counts, right? We're like, oh, 3 out of 10. He's like, but the number, and he never even thought about it. He said the number that really is important is the 7 out of 10 times I've made girls uncomfortable, which opens your eyes because you're like, man, if you think someone's vibing with you and you take a leap of faith, and let's say you do something stupid, just like that, bam, you can make someone feel uncomfortable. And that's so crazy because how many of us growing up have done something so stupid? And that's another thing that I like about this Maggie Sargent is she actually opened up. She opened up about like herself and talked about how she lost her virginity at 16 years old and now would have been unacceptable and a part of a movement because she said that she was drunk and didn't really recall. But she said that she made the decision to suck it up and move on and not let it affect her. She said it probably had some kind of effect. She's never really dove into it to know if there has been any effect, but she assumes there probably has been. But she was very adamant. I made the decision to not let it affect me and move forward. She took control of that situation and moved forward. Now there was a lot of people in the comments that were really, really going in on her, ridiculing her. One dude was like, not all men are like that and blah, 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 which is true. But let's be real with ourselves, guys. We do some dumb shit. Not all guys are like that. That is correct. But it goes back to the old saying, if we put ourselves in stupid positions, we're going to do something stupid. But it's about educating ourselves, understanding, learning, and knowing what to do in those situations, or even knowing what to do so we don't get put in those situations. It's not a matter of wrong place, wrong time. If you're a faithful man and there's beautiful women around you, you're not going to cheat because you're a faithful man, you're in love. Just because there's beautiful women there doesn't mean, oh, I got to cheat. No. And that's what I'm saying. Just because you're in a weird, stupid position doesn't mean you have to act on whatever it is you would normally do or have done in the past. If we learn and adjust and truly understand, we won't do whatever it is that we were going to do in that situation. And we're better for it. Society's better for it. We're progressing. I'm all for empowering women. But I meant what I said when I said the moment that someone plays victim and it's not true, I really believe that that's when all this is going to stop. That's when the empowerment of women is just going to come to a halt and we're going to revert back to old days. So ladies, please don't try to gain attention or do something out of selfish reasoning. I feel like that will come out. Let the victims speak, but the ones who are victims, because I don't want you to ruin something that's moving forward, that's allowing a voice for people who thought they didn't have a voice. And that's important. That's important. Now, this is completely different than the Me Too. They didn't have a choice. They were put in awkward situations, not by their own merits. Things happened. Don't put yourself in positions if you feel uncomfortable. And definitely don't reach out years later. Like, don't do that. If you're a victim, I'm sorry. But also, don't play a victim. I think you'll know if you're a victim. And, oh man, I don't know. It's a hard conversation. I can't figure out what it is I'm trying to say and what I want to say. I feel like everything I'm saying is going to get turned and and changed in some kind of way. But if you take anything from this podcast, this episode, I want you to take this. When I said that if you feel like a victim, you're a victim in every sense of the word, I meant that. Only you will know if you've been victimized. If you will feel it, you'll know. But there's people out there that are going to claim, and that's why we got to be careful, people. Because of this empowering era that we're in, any woman that comes out and speaks, we can't just believe. Review the facts. And it's hard. Morally, not right. Chris D'Elia was not right morally. But if he unknowingly did these things, can we forgive him? Are we going to stop looking at him as a predator because he never intended to prey? And that's hard. And I brought up the whole Netflix thing because that's all I've been seeing is, oh, how ironic that he played this. It's sad. He was just taking a role. Imagine if he knew that this stuff was going to happen. You think he'd take that role and paint himself in that light? I don't know. It's crazy. If he did, that is creepy. That is creepy beyond me. But I don't believe he did. I don't believe that he knew the girls' ages. And once he did, it seemed like he showed intent to pull away and stop. And we have some emails confirming that. I believe other things are going to come out. But to all his friends, quote unquote, and people who have used his name and likeness for views or gains on their podcast, that is fucking shitty that you are denouncing him and canceling him and you want nothing to do with him all of a sudden. As friends, shouldn't you believe people make mistakes? Again, if things happen, if he kills babies, if he's molesting children, there are things that are inexcusable and you don't forgive. And you don't want to hang out with people like that. But what kind of conversation is going to happen if he comes out innocent from all this because he had no knowledge and you turned your back on him? Man, those are the times I start feeling for Chris because I start looking in the future and I start feeling like, eventually he's going to do his podcast again. People are probably not going to listen. Eventually he's going to have that awkward conversation for a long time, actually. He's going to have to continuously defend himself. And that's going to suck for him. And again, this is all if he's found innocent. I can care less if he's guilty because that's a shitty move. But if he's found innocent. And then I wonder if he even goes on these shows or hangs out with his buddies or when he's at the comedy store, comedy clubs, or he's touring with somebody. And they're like, yo, man, how you been? Let's grab your... Nah, I'm cool. Because why would he ever trust them again? Because he knows where they sit, where they lie. They lie to their platform, their media outlets, and that's what podcasts do. So instead of defend a friend or just be neutral and say, look, all the facts haven't come out. What I'm trying to do, all the facts haven't come out. We've seen things from both sides. It's hard to know what to believe. It's easy, though, to jump into emotion or give into emotion and side with the victims automatically. And we all feel for the victims. But there's got to be something said on Chris's side that if he unknowingly did these things, we can't just cancel him or he shouldn't just be canceled. And again, that's when I feel for him again. When he has to have those weird conversations with those so-called friends face to face, to look at them in the eye and just know that they're not trustworthy. You can't trust them. Then what? Maggie says that he would go to the comedy club and do his bit, keep his head down, and pretty much leave. Now, that's going to be even more true if and when he ever returns. He's not going to. Why would you want to hang out with people that turn their back on you if you were innocent the whole time? And that's why it's hard because I've done podcasts in the past where I kind of defend Aaron Hernandez's side, and I kind of, in a sense, the first one talked a little on R. Kelly's side. Everything's different. And it's just, Not so much R. Kelly, because, I mean, come on, he's guilty. 100%. But someone like Aaron Hernandez, CT plays a big part. No one talks about that. Maybe stupidity and ignorance and naiveness plays a part with Chris D'Elia, and we're not going to talk about that. And I just hate to see someone who's worked so hard fall because of a mistake, an unknowing mistake. Again, if he did this shit, fucking burn, cancel him, whatever. I don't care. I don't care. But keep an open mind that this is still ongoing. They admitted the conversation and the things he's done wrong, but they also have their stance, and more information is going to get released as things go on. So just remember that, and I don't know, just keep us on your subscribed on anywhere you listen to podcasts. As this gets updated, I'll update the story. I would love to have this conversation with someone else here. Hopefully we can make that happen. But until then, this is what I got. If I'm wrong, I apologize. Ignore everything I said. And I'm sorry. And I'm not even going to go into the if I'm right part, but it's just a matter of I feel bad if indeed he unknowingly did these things. And there's no ignoring the shitty thing that he did. No ignoring that. But we should wait for the facts to come out before we cancel him. Culture Punch Podcast. We're out.